Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Game Tape Rewind special. My name is Chris Brown. I am joined by my good friend and co-host of our podcast, Game Tape Rewind, Eric Hastings. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. This is a new territory for us. We're going to try to cover some ground pretty quickly, so I'm ready to go.
Okay. Well, without any further ado, this episode is going to be focused on the NBA awards. And as of our recording, we know the finalists for the awards for this year's NBA season, but we don't know any of the results. So what we wanted to do is give our opinions of who we think should win each award and why, and then kind of discuss that. And we also came up with a couple of our own awards that aren't voted on by anybody except us. So we will cover those as well. We hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, you'll definitely enjoy our podcast. So give that a look. But let's start with one of our made-up categories, which is the biggest surprise, and surprise in a good way. So Eric, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I definitely want to focus on the positives here. I mean, quite a few for this year. I mean, it's been a really weird year in the NBA, but I think quite fun. For me, I think biggest surprise and a positive is the Phoenix Suns. I
Mm-hmm.
know that they're the 2 seed, so why not say the Utah Jazz? Well, we know they've been hovering around this kind of elite tier for a while, but Phoenix going through all the turnaround, bringing Monty Williams and Chris Paul. I was expecting maybe a 5th seed, 4th seed at best, but to hover
Yeah.
around that 1 and 2 spot all year is really impressive. And I'm just happy for them as someone who's, still kind of has a soft spot for the Suns. So very, very positive outlook, but not a great first round draw with the Lakers in the first round.
Yeah, that's a tough scene, but I mean, when you're the 2 seed, you've earned it. So it should be a good matchup. For me, I'm going to have to take it back to the East, and it's going to be the Knicks getting the
Mm.
4 seed. Last year, the Suns were at least competitive and made it to the bubble and almost snuck into the playoffs before making all those moves. The Knicks have been a dumpster fire for the better part of the last decade. So for them to bring in a new coach, Tom Thibodeau, to get what they got out of some of their players, one of which we'll definitely be talking about later in this episode. And, I think I was expecting competitive, gritty, defensive minded, which is what we got. But in today's NBA, that doesn't necessarily get you as far as it used to. So if anything, I thought they might sneak into the playoffs, 7 or 8 seed, maybe get into that play-in tournament. But to lock down home court advantage in the first round is nothing short of miraculous. And that team's playing well. They're playing hard, and they're going to be a tough out. And I think if you gave me $100 to predict that at the beginning of the season, I would have laughed at you. So that's my
Yes.
biggest surprise. Moving on to the negatives, what was your biggest letdown of this year?
Man, well, as we're recording this, it's good to note that we are in the middle of the last play-in game for the actual NBA playoffs, which is the Warriors and the Grizzlies. So
Mm,
for me, unfortunately, I think it is everyone on the Golden State Warriors not named Stephen Curry. Obviously you can't plan all the time for injuries, and um, you know, they brought in Kelly Oubre to make up for losing Klay Thompson. That didn't necessarily work out. Got off to a really, really tough start.
mm,
Andrew Wiggins, I will say, did have, I think, a quality year. I think this is a good place for him compared to Minnesota, and has really, I think, shown some promise and definitely growth. Maybe a little too late per se, but this team just really doesn't have enough firepower to help. Probably what would have been a more, I think, front runner MVP case for Stephen Curry throughout the entire year if they had been a better team.
yeah.
I think Draymond Green has, done Draymond Green things, but in
Mm,
terms of offensive firepower and someone you can rely on in any given night, I look at that roster and I really don't see anyone that you can choose, especially because whereas Kelly Oubre didn't work out. So for me, unfortunately, it is the Golden State Warriors. I know people would generally like to see them around. They like Stephen Curry in the playoffs, which we may get, but they're a letdown for me. That team is just, I think that's pretty tough for Steph.
yeah, and that's definitely fair. It's been tough sledding on a lot of fronts for them. I think Draymond, he works so well with Steph that it made it, it sort of papered over some of the wounds there. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a lot to be desired from the rest of the cast. My biggest letdown is more of a general theme throughout the NBA this year, and that's having so many players miss so much time.
Yes.
Obviously, this season was going to be a sort of an unusual one with all the COVID protocols, health and safety regulations. But there seemed to be a lot of times where either players were missing time because of the condensed schedule, resting, minor injuries that turned into major injuries, setbacks from those injuries. And it just boiled down to, I think, a lot less fun of a season when you don't have all of your stars playing. It has certainly made the playoff race more interesting. I don't think either one of us would have thought that the Lakers would be in the play-in tournament, but that's what the injuries did. And it's just disappointing when you have so much time lost, especially in a shortened season for so many of the league's marquee players. So that was kind of a bummer, but we're through most of it now. Most of the stars are either in the playoffs and healthy, or they're getting ready for next season. But that was my biggest letdown for sure.
That's more than understandable. It's you see the guys on the bench, and especially like just talking about Klay Thompson, they look like they want to get in there so
Yeah.
bad.
Yep.
Some of these guys. So, now some of them not so much. They're happy looking at you, Brooklyn Nets guys who sit for large parts of the season.
Yeah, a
here
little
and there,
sketchy there, but
definitely hear you, and I'm hoping next year we can really feel like it is truly that full NBA once again. And I think that we'll all be better off for it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly and wish for the same. So let's move on to some traditional categories. Yeah. We're going to save MVP for last, just as a spoiler alert, so you're going to have to keep watching. Let's start with Coach of the Year, and let's keep the same format.
Yeah, we'll keep it rolling here. It's kind of like a fun little game show here. I have what's the opposite of a soft spot, I guess, for Tom Thibodeau as someone who also rooted for the Chicago Bulls at one point with Derrick Rose.
You hate his guts.
But I hate him, yeah. So I guess that's the fair thing to say. So automatic dismissal from the category for me. I'm going to keep rocking with the Suns. Monty Williams has an awesome story, and he's also an awesome guy by all accounts in the NBA family. And to come in again to a franchise that has not been to the playoffs in so long, and to have such consistency throughout the year, and to balance, what is a promising young player in Devin Booker and not really inhibit his growth by putting, probably one of the most ball dominant players ever in the NBA and Chris Paul into that offense is really a special balance. And I wasn't necessarily sure it would work, but man, did it. And I'm glad to see them in the playoffs. Like I said, they're my favorite surprise of the year. And, Monty Williams is a big reason for that. So he gets my soft spot selection. Tom Thibodeau gets my don't want to see your face anymore on my TV.
Okay. Well, I agree with that. I think Monty Williams is going to win the award. He's certainly deserving. I probably would go with Tibbs. And I know that you hate him, so that's whatever.
Disappointing, Chris.
You're more than entitled to that opinion. But again, he put together. He took this sort of disheveled roster that hadn't been able to do anything for a while. A couple of young players that weren't really playing to their potential, and then maximized them, and also brought in Derrick Rose to help bolster that, and Taj Gibson to help bolster that roster. Guys that he was familiar with, guys who were obviously familiar with him. And again, just, their games started to blossom again. And it's tough to do that with players that are so advanced in their career, coming to a new system, new team, new everything, and to get the best out of them. To, again, get that team that was nowhere near playoff contention ready to a 4 seed is pretty remarkable for me. But I understand that you hate his guts, so you don't have.
So he's not allowed to get it. I mean,
you don't have to sing his praises. That's fine. Next award is the Sixth Man of the Year award.
Yeah, Sixth Man of the Year is usually probably my favorite award to think about because, there's also the definition of what really is a sixth man. Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams have ruled that category for so long. But this year you have some really interesting guys, including, talking about the New York Knicks, the youngest MVP in NBA history, Derrick Rose. Yeah. Probably if you put that on my big what ifs in someone's career, I probably would have never put Derrick Rose at a Sixth Man of the Year category. Definitely a soft spot there. And then you have 2 Utah Jazz guys, which have made that well-oiled machine work. They're hitting a ton of threes. I I think Jordan Clarkson is going to win it. I think he does. He deserves it
Mm-hmm.
because of the Jazz's defensive efficiency. Jordan Clarkson can basically come in there and go, I'm going to shoot 15 to 20 times and play pretty good defense, but I'm going to give you 18 a game, which is a career
Or
high for
more.
him.
Yeah.
He's hitting the most 3-pointers in a season for him, most points per game. His efficiency is down a little bit, but again, you can that's okay when your defense is so great. So for me, Jordan Clarkson has been really fun to watch. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the games this year, Chris, but he's got this
Mm-hmm.
step back that I don't
Yeah.
really remember him having before. So I don't know what he learned in Utah, but I would love to see Derrick Rose win it. I think he certainly deserves it more maybe than Joe, but I think Jordan Clarkson's a clear winner here and gets my vote, even though I'd love to see Derrick Rose get it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to win it. I think he is deserving of it. He's sort of transformed his game. And I know that there's sometimes the argument of if there's two six-man candidates from the same team, do you really have a six-man candidate? Which we saw with, I think it was the Clippers with Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams either last year or 2 years ago. So that definitely hurts his case. I'm not going to lie. But he has certainly put forth his best statistical output. He's been a key part of that number one seed Jazz team. You can't really discount his contributions on the floor. You know, he's basically instant offense, and he does enough on the defensive end to keep himself on the floor and kind of transform that team who've gone through a significant number of injuries this year as well. Yes. To keep them in, you know, to help keep them where they are. I think he deserves a lot of that. I think he's going to win the award. Next award is the Most Improved Player of the Year award. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this is also a really cool category in some really different names this year. It's hard to look over Julius Randle being an all-star and the obviously the only all-star in the category, averaging a double-double this year. And I think just over 6 assists per game. I mean, he's having a very, very quality year. I love Michael Porter Jr.'s game. I think that he should get a different award. I don't know what it should be called. Maybe best next man up award. You have Jamal Murray go down with a season-ending injury, and the Nuggets don't lose a step, which is a lot to do with Nikola Jokic. But Porter Jr. looks awesome. And then Jeremy Grant really started out hot for the Pistons, knowing that they're not really a playoff contention team, but knowing that they have a building block now is really great. So I wish those two guys, Grant and Porter Jr. could get their own award, some kind of consolation prize. But this is the easiest one, just due to the fact that Randall's an all-star. He's having an amazing season. You've really, I thought, talked about the Knicks wonderfully, and the fact that they secured that 4 seed when they've been a laughingstock for so long. And Randall's not exactly been the most trustworthy career so far. He's been shipped around and was part of that exodus of the young guys on the Lakers, also with Jordan Clarkson. So it's just kind of cool to see these guys that LeBron shipped off and said, I hope you have a good career, but it's not your time here. We're trying to win a championship. And to see them, really materialize into NBA award finalist just 2 years later. So
it makes you think. If they just stuck around with him, you never know. Maybe we could be seeing this, but we probably wouldn't. And I think it's been great for Randall to get to New York. He has admitted that much. I think he's the clear-cut winner here, despite how good of a season that Michael Porter Jr. and Jeremy Grant have had. Randall has just taken the leap. When you make your first all-star team, I think that's pretty obvious, given where he was in the past. And I've always liked his game going back to when he was, even in Kentucky and on the Lakers. He always showed that he had signs of being this sort of, not a tweener, but definitely more like a bully 4, small 5 kind of player. And once he added his jumper to it, and he's been an excellent playmaker this year, as you alluded to with his assist numbers, he's been the focal point. And when you're a focal point that the other team still can't stop, that's pretty unbelievable. I think if the MVP category had more finalists, he would probably be in the top 5 or 6 and be pretty well deserving of it. So I agree with you there. Next award is the Defensive Player of the Year. Who are you taking?
Oh yeah, I love this one. I know the analytics people, and you and I are pretty, we give credence to analytics. We know a lot of people who don't necessarily like that, but I think you have to give balance to the eye test and the analytics. I think Rudy Gobert has a 65-70% chance of winning, but personally, from watching basketball a lot this year, I think Ben Simmons is the best defensive player in the NBA, can guard 1 through almost 5 on some teams, especially small ball teams, and plays with just a jarring amount of energy every night. As a Sixers fan and being part of that Twitterverse, I've never seen a player get so much hate for a team that really is supposed to be about this kind of grit and grind. You play defense, you get
Yeah,
back.
but it's the Sixers fans.
It was the Sixers fans, and we all have something wrong with us. So, for me, it's Ben Simmons. I'm not even going to toss out here the fact that he's averaging all these steals and assists, and the fact that he runs the offense and everything else. We all know the shooting's an issue, yada yada, but the Sixers should be so fortunate not to just have him an MVP candidate, but that defense is anchored by several, I would say, top 10 defensive players with Thibault, Embiid, and Ben Simmons. I think that's a top 10 defense between all them three, just them three. Yeah, I think Ben deserves it because of his versatility and the fact that he is going all the way out to the perimeter. And if you get a switch with him on Embiid or somebody, you don't really have to worry because he's so big as it is. He can guard most centers in the NBA.
I think that's a fair take, and his versatility helps. I'm gonna go with Rudy because of all of the stats that point at his way and the eye test. Not gonna say that I'm relying solely on numbers because I've watched enough Jazz games to see his impact on the floor, even on shots that he doesn't block. His field goal against percentage at the rim is absurd. And when you have somebody anchoring a defense like that, I think you have to give it to him because he is the focal point of the defense. And while Ben roves around, as you mentioned, you do have these other top 10 defenders also on the floor, which certainly helps. And I'm not going to try to use that as an argument against him. But to have, Rudy Gobert doesn't really have that. And he still anchors his defense and does an outstanding job of it. What's interesting to me is that Draymond Green on this list of finalists is the only one of them who I think was top 5 in both blocks per game and steals per game. He definitely was steals per game. I could be wrong about blocks. Actually, I think I am wrong about blocks. But when he was playing and up to his potential this year, he helps transform that defense as well. So I think they're all deserving. I would vote for Rudy Gobert, but I think that Ben Simmons would definitely be a close second. Next up, we have Rookie of the Year. Who do you got?
It depends on what network you ask. I think you'll get different answers on this. I think that we will probably answer this similarly. And I think this is just due to also how much they played rule. Anthony Edwards is the clear Rookie of the Year to me. He played 72 games this year, which is a solid 16 or 17 more than LaMelo. I think LaMelo is an obvious future star in the league. He is definitely a showstopper. Awesome to watch. I think that we've said this before. The league is going to be in such good hands when the LeBrons and KDs move on because these young guys are competitive. Even when LaMelo was out with his wrist injury, you could see he was very antsy to get in, which I really appreciate. It makes me a fan. So, but Anthony Edwards was a killer this year. He had the dunk of the year as well, which is always awesome. I do want to give some shout out to Tyreese Halliburton. The Kings are the worst franchise in the league, unfortunately. Timberwolves aren't far behind, but he also went down with an injury as well, but was playing great 3-and-D, also a backup playmaker. Got to go with Ant Edwards, also future star. Maybe if LaMelo had played 10 more games, we'd have a harder conversation, but you got to go with the games played here.
I agree with you. I think it should be Edwards. It might be LaMelo because he's got the flash. But I think having, Edwards on a team where he was putting up so many stats and it wasn't necessarily translating to winning, but they also missed Cat for a significant portion of the year. They missed D'Angelo Russell for a significant portion of the year. And those are your two best players. So, even as a rookie, his improvement over the year was pretty evident from start to finish. By the end of the year, he was averaging, I think, close to 20 points a game. His shooting numbers were up, his rebounds, assists, and he was averaging over a steal per game. So as a guard to have that defensive impact so immediately was pretty great. And then it does come down to the fact that LaMelo and Halliburton missed those games towards the end of the year because the eye test definitely matters. And it especially matters at the end of the year. as voters are starting to see the games and think about who they're going to vote for, I know they probably don't want to say that it impacts their decision, but it has to. Plus, you have the fact that LaMelo was one of 3 point guards on that team and probably the third best of the 3. You can make the case that he was better than Devontae Graham, but Terry Rozier was the clear-cut best player on that team. So I think for a rookie-wise, two pretty much guaranteed stars. I think Halliburton is going to outplay his draft slot. And if James Wiseman didn't get hurt, he'd probably be on this list as well. So as you mentioned, I think the NBA will be in good hands. But for me, it's going to be Anthony Edwards. We'll see what happens. I would vote for him. So now we come to the final category here. And I know we're not going to agree on this. So it's the MVP. Who you got?
I'm wearing a Joel Embiid jersey. Let's just be clear. I just want to be very clear.
Okay.
If he had played more games, okay, I know that this is going to become a perfect attendance war because Nikola Jokic played every single game this year. Joel Embiid did not play every game this year. He played 21 less games than Nikola Jokic this year. I think that
it was
Jokic,
19.
19. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not very good at math. I think the MVP is Jokic. I think that because people will say the same thing over the years, LeBron could be MVP every year. To me, what Jokic did this year reminded me of LeBron, like the consistency, like the absolute reliability, the fact that I don't even need to check the box score on any given night, and I could tell it was going to be just a gem. That's hard to ignore. This is a really tough decision because Embiid has basically the same exact season outside of the assist numbers, but Embiid is definitely a better defensive player. To me, they are a absolute, neutral. They hedge each other perfectly. They're the best 2 centers in the league. And I'm so glad to see them on here because for so long, this has been a guard and forward dominated award. So, it's similar to the NFL. It's like, when will we get a non-quarterback, MVP kind of thing?
Yeah.
So Jokic deserves it. I think he's going to win it. My heart is set on the fact that Embiid would have won it if he had played more games.
Agreed.
And then there's Steph Curry, who is having the exact same season he had when he was the unanimous MVP in the first place. So I feel very sick and disgusting about just kind of like nudging him off to the side. But you can't. Damian Lillard put it perfectly. Okay. He said, I basically did the same thing before. We were 8th seed. I had basically these numbers. Okay, they were a little less than that. But either way, he wasn't even really part of the conversation. And I think that if you're not even going to be in the playoffs, you can't be an MVP regardless. And as we're recording this, it's not looking like the Warriors are going to make the playoffs. So for me, I didn't think the Warriors were going to make the playoffs in the first place, which was an unpopular opinion among our cohort of friends. It looks like that's going to be right. God bless Steph Curry. He definitely deserves an award of some type, but it's not the MVP, unfortunately, this year.
Well, hey, you don't know that yet about the
He did
Warriors.
He did win the scoring title, though.
It's close in the second quarter as we speak. So I think you're right that if Embiid had played more games, he would be pretty clear. Maybe not clear, but he would be the favorite because he's having his best season by all accounts. He's been the most reliable on that team. He's been the focal point of that offense, and he's been doing it in so many ways that make him so dangerous. My vote is going to be for Steph. I know he's not going to win it, and I think Jokic, for all the reasons you gave, is a deserving MVP. When Murray went down, I know Porter stepped up and they got Aaron Gordon, which helped, but it was still the Nikola Jokic show. Yeah. And he put on a show every single time he was out on the floor. And that reliability, that consistency, you have to give points for that. You can't deny that. As you mentioned earlier, the non-Steph Warriors have been pretty atrocious this year, with the exception of maybe Draymond Green. And they had a couple of nice surprises like Wiggins. I think Wiseman will be good for them in the long run. Steph is the engine that makes that team go. And when he's on, he will make you look stupid. And it's just unbelievable to watch. I mean, I just find myself laughing when I'm watching him when he's going, because it's like you can't do anything about that, and he's going to make you look stupid while doing it. which I find hilarious. Um, the Warriors were 1-7 when Steph didn't play this year, and he still has them, scrapping and clawing to get into the playoffs on a season that they easily could have packed it in and said,
Yes.
we lost Clay on draft day. It's not going to be our year. Let's just mail it in. And to his credit, he busted his butt all year. The last month or so, he's been on an absolute tear and carrying that team to the playoffs or on the brink of the playoffs on his back. So I would give it to him because of that valuable category, that sort of interpretation of the word. If I had a vote, but I don't, and I think it's going to be Jokic, and I think he's honestly deserving of it. But I would give my vote to Steph.
I do want to amend my comment too. I do see the score in the background now is they were within 7. So I do want to amend that comment, and because if Steph Curry heard me, he's definitely going to hurt the Grizzlies if he heard that somebody is talking smack like I am. I do want to say, to his credit, I gained a lot of respect for him this year because of what you just said. They easily could have packed it in. Steve Kerr knew what they were getting into this year. And it's very obvious that Steph has no interest in just letting this go. And for me, that's the ultimate testament of a gamer. And he definitely gained a lot of respect for me, this year. Not that he's not already the best shooter ever, but I really love that in players.
Yeah, and to win the scoring title, in a season where a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about said, "Oh, he's going to get exposed this year because they don't have Clay," and it's no. I mean, the defenses were still keyed on him 24/7, and he still set the NBA, or he still led the league in scoring. So I think it was incredibly impressive to see that. And he, again, earned a lot of respect from us. And I would give him that award if I could, but I can't. So he probably won't win it. So let us know what you guys think, what your votes are. We'd love to hear them in the comments below. Hopefully, we'll check back in once we have the actual answers and see how we did, how our predictions went. And in the meantime, we hope you enjoy the NBA playoffs. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Game Tape Rewind. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Game Tape Rewind. You'll find us there. We hope you enjoy this episode. We hope you check out our podcast and have a great night.